Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. There are so many things on your mind. We know because you've sent in your questions. Today, it's another edition of Ask the Guys. Awesome questions from our listeners and potentially some interesting answers today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Stop for a moment. Why are you listening to this show? Are you dreaming of a bigger, brighter financial future? More personal freedom to live life on your own terms? What if there was just one skill that could make it happen? There is. Sales. Robert Kiyosaki says every entrepreneur must be good at sales. It's true for investors too. Sales is how you attract money, people, and opportunities. Sales is the skill used to negotiate deals and lead your team. Sales skills are essential to success. The good news is, it's a learnable skill. The great news is, we've created a 2-day interactive workshop to teach those skills to you. Make plans today to attend How to Win Funds and Influence People, Mastering the Art of Financial Selling. For dates and details, send an email to sales@realestateguysradio.com or visit realestateguysradio.com and look under events. Gain the skills you need to succeed. Email sales@realestateguysradio.com or look under the events tab at realestateguysradio.com.
Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. Joining me as usual, it is our co-host financial strategist, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
We love all of our shows. They're like our children, and there are thousands of them. But our favorite show is when we get to interact with our awesome listeners, and that's today. It's Ask the Guys. Your questions, our answers. Lots of folks submit questions to the Real Estate Guys, and although we don't answer them personally very often, and we certainly can't get to all of them, we like to pick the ones out of the mailbag that we think have the most importance to a large audience, so that you should, even if you didn't submit a question, learn something today. We only have 2 caveats. We are not tax or legal professionals, and we don't give advice. We give you ideas and information so that you can then seek out the proper folks to give you that legal or tax or other advice that you might need. With that out of the way, question 1 comes from Alex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hey guys, I enjoy your podcast. I started listening about a month ago. I have a great desire to invest in real estate. There has got to be deals here in Las Vegas where I live. I just don't know where to start. Please advise, Alex. All right, Alex. Well, love this question because there are deals everywhere. And depending on what the market is like, in the market that you live in the market that you're interested in the market that you're considering, it may be skewed more towards buyers, meaning the buyers are getting the better deals, and you can come in low and you can make a lowball offer if it seems appropriate because property's languishing on the market, or it's a seller's market like it is in many parts of the world right now, where there are multiple offers. People are bidding above asking price. One of our providers that I was talking to this week says that his average offer today is $100,000 over asking, and his median home price is just over $550,000. That's a huge amount of difference. So if I'm able to even get a property, would I call that a deal? So I think we have to step back and say, what is a deal? A deal to me means I get in a property at a price that makes sense to me. It doesn't mean I stole it. It doesn't mean that somebody else had to give up a lot of their equity or cash flow. It just means that it makes a lot of sense. And so Las Vegas, Nevada is a market we know very well. Our premise is you can only know a handful of markets extremely well. And I would say this is one of the ones that I know extremely well, having been invested in Las Vegas a long, long time. And it is a strong market right now, meaning it is a seller's market right now, and it's hot. But that doesn't mean that there aren't good deals available.
Well, I think we talk a lot on this program about personal investment philosophy. And if you're not familiar with that, you can send an email to PIP, like personal investment philosophy, at realestateguysradio.com. And there's a little audio with a worksheet that kind of guides you through what that process is. But some people are looking for a deal where they can create equity, what we call force equity, by the quintessential fixer-upper. And there's always going to be distress present in a market. The way you find that is you look for a motivated seller, somebody that's got a problem. Maybe it's speed. Maybe the house is in horrible condition. Maybe there's some other reason why they've got to accept maybe less than they could get if they were to hold it out in the market for a longer period of time. And you can come in and solve their problem and get yourself a deal. If you're not inclined to do that kind of work, then the definition of a deal is going to be something that makes financial sense in terms of long-term control. Are the rents coming in? Are you able to take advantage of the tax breaks? Can you qualify for a mortgage that is going to give you a positive cash flow? And then ultimately, in an income-producing property, it comes down to the tenant base. Is there enough of the right kind of people willing to pay the right kind of price? And no matter what you're looking at in that particular situation, it comes down to supply and demand. It's no secret that for quite a while, many people in the real estate industry, particularly housing, have been screaming about the lack of inventory. Las Vegas is a little bit of a surprising market because obviously the hospitality business, the leisure business just got decimated. Las Vegas is very dependent upon that kind of tourism, and they were really locked down hard for a long time. Of course, that creates a lot of temporary distress and maybe gives you the opportunity to step in and find some bargains. As far as how do you find these things once you know what you're looking for, it always comes down to relationships.
Well, that's a key point, Russ, that this is a relationship business. And when you start out, it's like, well, where do I start? Well, you are going to nose around and start to pay attention to what things are selling for and what's the rent there and what is that ratio like and what are expenses and what about occupancy and where's the market tight and where are there apartment owners giving incentives and not, right? So you're starting to develop a taste and a feel for the market. But at the same time, you got to get out there and network. And there's lots of ways to do that. In Las Vegas, there are several investor groups that meet regularly to talk about these kinds of things. And they're easy to find, and you can start to hang around people that are already investing. You'll get some good ideas there. There's also a great broker network in Las Vegas. A lot of folks that we've worked with over the years that have been there for a long time understand the ups, the downs, and the sideways, and the uniqueness of that market. You know, Russ, you mentioned leisure, but it's not just vacationers. It is the second, third, or first convention market in the USA, depending on the year. They're always neck and neck with a couple of big convention markets. And of course, Nevada did lock down heavy. And there's a couple of big conventions we regularly go to that have moved out of Nevada because it was so difficult. We had an event scheduled in Las Vegas, Lake Las Vegas, actually, in January of 2021. And the governor forced us to move. I mean, he didn't reach out to us. He just said no meetings more than 50 people. And we had over 125 signed up. We had to move that meeting to another state, which we did, and it was awesome. But I tell you, we're going to think twice before doing another event there until things change. And so it doesn't mean that it's not a good market. It does mean that perhaps there is buying opportunity. If you've got folks that are like, you know, most of my renters are people that are part of the hospitality and conference industries, and they don't have jobs, and now my investment is underwater, you might be able to find one of those don't wanters. And it's one of the unique parts of real estate, Alex, is that you don't just have like a share of stock is priced at whatever the price is today. Any share of Apple stock is the same price today to any person. That's not how real estate works. There's neighborhoods where houses are selling for $200,000, $200,000, $220,000, $210,000, and all of a sudden you find one don't wanter who says, I'll let this thing go for $140,000 cash. That could be a great deal.
Yeah, so I just want to tag on this concept of relationships and maybe get a little bit more specific. If you're looking for a distressed property, you know, there are people that are in the debt collection business. There are attorneys who handle divorce and bankruptcy. There are people who are on the front end, auto repossessors. When someone starts to have financial difficulty that's a homeowner, that starts to show up, and it can show up before there's an auction on the courthouse steps. And sometimes that seller might be a little bit pliable if you can put out their short-term situation by giving them maybe a down payment or something that puts out their immediate fire as part of the contract, so that you can be a little bit creative. And then if you're looking for something that's more income driven, you could be talking to property managers or networking with property managers who happen to know where the demand really is strong and maybe where there's owners who are ready to sell. And they would know that perhaps because they're fixing the property up and getting it prepared to sell long before it's on the market. So there's ways to move up the food chain and kind of get in front of the crowd. But until you're experienced, probably the best thing to do, as Robert mentioned, is join these investor clubs, because you're going to find a lot of people that are active in the market. Many of them are going to have deals. And when people who are really good at finding deals can't close on the deals they find, they do something called wholesaling, which means they'll, for a small fee, maybe $5,000, flip a deal to you, and then you close on on it, and they become your bird dog network. So those are some tips for how you can get into the right kind of relationships with people and put yourself a little bit closer to the front of the line.
Obviously, a primary relationship is going to be with your mortgage professional. So before you start looking at property, make sure you've gone through your particular financial situation and credit profile with someone that can help you get a loan. That's a different person if you're thinking about 1 to 4 units than if you're thinking about 5 units or more in residential. But get that under your belt, and it takes some time. You may already be there, but if you're not, that's good advice. We see too many investors get all excited about the property, they get one under contract, and then they aren't approved for the loan. And had they just talked to the mortgage person first, a few tweaks here and there, a little bit of homework, they probably could have been there. So great question, Alex. Make sure that you keep listening to shows like this, because that's going to keep your head in the game, and eventually a great deal will find you. It's Ask the Guys. Your questions, our answers. This question comes from Carol in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. Hi, guys. I know next to nothing about real estate and investing, and I need a mentor or teacher. I want to learn from the best. Do you offer a course? I heard about you from the Rich Dad Radio podcast. Thank you, Carol. Well, thank you for that kind email, and thanks to our good friends at the Rich Dad Radio program. We have lots of folks that find us that way, and vice versa, frankly. So, when it comes to starting out, you really do have to get educated. Our motto is education for effective action. Not education so that you can impress people at cocktail parties, and not education so that the educator can sell you a bunch of courses. Having said that, there are a lot of resources that we have to help investors get from where they are today to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think that when you look at this, for 10 years, we ran an investor mentoring club for active and aspiring small real estate investors, mom and pop investors, and it was a ton of fun. And we taught things about how to calculate cash flows and organize financing and deal with property management issues and do due diligence on markets. Sadly, we didn't capture all that content and turn it into a course. We have on our drawing board to do that. But in the meantime, there are a lot of great people out there doing a good job. Obviously, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, start there, because it's the big paradigm shift about what is an asset. And that's something that produces cash flow. In that same vein of books, read Tom Wheelwright's book, Tax-Free Wealth, which really explains the tax side of owning real estate. When you put the tax and the debt together, you really understand how to build wealth through real estate. Since you're already a Rich Dad fan and kind of moving in the Rich Dad world, Ken McElroy has a great YouTube channel, puts out a lot of great content. And in fact, Kenny is going to be on our Investor Summit coming up. So there's still time and still room if you really want to do a crash course and get up to speed very quickly and get around a lot of the right people and spend time with Robert Kiyosaki directly and Ken McElroy directly. Make plans to be on the summit. Bigger Pockets does a pretty good job of doing some of that beginning investor training, and that's a great podcast you can listen to. And then there's a book out there called Buy, Rehab, Refinance, Rent, Repeat, BRRRR. It's a BRRRR method. And I think our friend over at Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner, was part of that. He actually started his career listening to our show way back in the day. That's how old we are. But there is a lot of great stuff out there. What it comes down to, just like with our previous question for Alex, Carol, is that you're going to want to find a local club. You're going to want to find people who are active in the business, who are actually doing it. And you don't necessarily have to pay for mentorship. You can find someone who you can add value to. Maybe they need someone to do research. Maybe they need someone to do some office work. Maybe they need someone to follow up on things or chase down details. Just getting yourself in the environment around the right people. You'll learn to speak the language. You'll learn to think and see the way other investors think and look at the world. And then little by little, you'll pick it up. You'll build the relationships that you need. And before too long, you'll find that you'll be actually out on the field practicing what you've been learning. To my way of thinking, that's the fastest way to learn. This is a hard business to learn just reading books and watching videos.
Speaking of getting out there, we not only produce a bunch of events, but show up at other people's events. And you can find out about all those events at our website at realestateguysradio.com under events. We speak places, and those are places where you'll learn from us and lots of other people. We do our conferences where you learn from us and lots of other people. And then you get to meet people at the breaks and at cocktail parties and that kind of stuff. And that's really where the rubber starts to meet the road. What you've taken in from getting educated through books and online courses and podcasts and YouTube channels, now you can start to to have those conversations and banter back and forth ideas. And that's how you get clear on who you are as an investor. But I know Canada's a little shut down right now, Carol, but as soon as you can hop across the border, there's some things here. There's also some great investment groups in Canada. So look around. You'll be able to find some people that can help you. And as Russ said, later this year, you'll be hearing about some of those courses that we're in the midst of putting together. It's Ask the Guys, your questions, our answers, today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
Hey, it's Robert Helms. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I want to personally invite you to come see an amazing real estate market that combines excellent cash flow, offshore diversification, and what we affectionately call lifestyle investing. Come join me from August 20th to 23rd in the beautiful country of Belize. The Real Estate Guys have been bringing investors to Belize for more than 15 years now, and our discovery trip is designed to show you the market like nobody else can. Sure, Belize is breathtakingly beautiful, the people are wonderful, and wait till you taste the food. But the real opportunity is the real estate investment potential. Demand for offshore real estate has skyrocketed since the coronavirus shutdown, and with retirees looking for lifestyle, the work-from-home workforce able to be productive from afar, and tourism coming back strong, now may be the perfect time to consider Belize as a place to diversify risk in your investment portfolio. There's all types of opportunities in Belize when it comes to real estate investing, including both long and short-term rentals, commercial and retail triple net properties, business opportunities, land acquisition, development, agriculture, and more. As the only country in Latin America with English as its official language, it's easy to understand the law. Property rights are strong, and contracts are written in English. And in Ambergris Caye, a unique situation exists where demand for rentals continues to outstrip supply, creating a compelling environment for investors. So come see for yourself. Join me in August in Ambergris Caye, Belize, as we study the market, learn about the sustainable drivers, and tour lots of beautiful real estate. And like all of our field trips, there are no properties for sale during the weekend. Rather, you'll meet lots of local providers that will help educate you about the market so that you can follow up with them after the trip if the market is interesting to you. You've heard about Belize and the Real Estate Guys for all these years. Now come see what all the excitement is about. Plus, we'll have lots of time over meals and activities to talk about all things real estate. To get the details, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click on events where you'll find the Belize Discovery Trip. Once you register, you'll get information about our group hotel rates as well as travel details. So join me in Belize, August 20th to 23rd. It's a beautiful country with lots of amazing possibilities, and the only thing missing is you. Go to realestateguysradio.com under events, and I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Belize.
Hey, it's Ken McElroy. I listen to the Real Estate Guys, and so should you.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, heard every weekend on this great radio station and all the time at realestateguysradio.com. One of our favorite shows rolls around every 8 to 10 weeks. It's Ask the Guys, your questions, our answers. If you have a question for the guys, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click Ask the Guys. This question comes from Daniel in Livermore, California. Hi, Real Estate Guys. I love your show and have been listening since 2008. My question is, what are the pros and cons of using cash to finance a home improvement project versus a HELOC, home equity line of credit, at 2.5% interest? For a person who's debt-free, is one form of financing better than the other? My savings account is paying me close to nothing, but I would like to save my cash in case an investment opportunity comes up. Conversely, I have to pay interest on a HELOC, but the interest might be tax deductible. I would really appreciate any insight you have on this topic. All right, Daniel, well, let's turn things over to our financial strategist.
Yeah, well, I have a question for you, Daniel. How come you've been listening since 2008 and we've never seen you at a live event? Or maybe we have, I don't know. But you didn't say so. So obviously we love when people are listening to the show for a long time. But what's really interesting is how many people show up at an event and they say, oh, I've been listening to you for 5 years, for 6 years. And it's like, well, gosh, come out and say hi. So we like to get out, especially these days, and see everybody. So that's just kind of a broad-based invitation. Anyway, pros and cons of using cash to finance a home improvement. Well, the obvious thing is you don't have any debt. If you're doing home improvement and home is a liability, if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki and agree with the fact that it doesn't put cash in your pocket, it takes cash out. Therefore, doing a home improvement project, it might be a CapEx somewhere down the road on your balance sheet, but at the end of the day, it's money out with no money coming in. So if you don't have interest on that, then that's fine. Of course, you have lost opportunity costs, as you wisely recognize. So really the question is HELOC the best form of financing? I'm not a fan for a couple reasons. Although they're super convenient, but the challenge with HELOCs is typically the interest rate is variable. Read the loan documents. And number two is the term is fairly short term, and the loans can often be called or the lines shut off without much warning. So when you're going to use financing, if you're going to use financing for an extended period of time, it's best to put a more permanent form of financing. Maybe a little cash out refi would make more sense. And really, to go there, in my book, since you're doing home improvement, I'm guessing you're planning on staying in the home or keeping the home for an extended period of time. Or you might not be doing it unless you're fixing it up to sell it, which is a different discussion. Then a HELOC might be fine. But if you're in it for the long haul, then I'd use some permanent financing. But you could take more than you need out and do a little arbitrage. And I don't want to get too fancy because it's a simple question, but just consider this. If you could take money out of your HELOC at 3%, and you took out double what you needed for your home improvement and invested the half that you didn't need for the home improvement at 6%, the income on the 6% would pay 100% of the payment on the 3%, and the home improvement is essentially free. And so there's ways to do that. If you visit our resource center or go back in our archives, you can find people who offer you those high yield options. And candidly, they're more than 6%. They're more like 9 to 15%. So that type of stuff is out there. You can look in our resource center and find that, or send us a query to feedback at realestateguysradio.com, and we can get you pointed in the right direction. Then the idea of keeping cash liquid to have the ability to do an investment, that's a fantastic idea. Again, I don't think having an open HELOC that's undrawn would be a good form of cash, because those things can be shut off at any time. And usually when the bargains show up in the marketplace, it's because credit is drying up and those lines are being cut off. So we don't look at HELOCs as a form of liquidity. So again, not a big fan. If you use debt to invest, the interest is deductible. According to our tax advisors, we're not tax advisors, or check with yours. In some cases, interest on a home equity loan is also deductible up to certain limitations, just because it's on your personal residence. But again, check with your advisor. If you do what I suggested, you might be able to make the argument that it was all for investment purposes. But again, check with your advisor. So I have more things I could say on that, but I think that that is probably a good primer on the idea of how those loans work and how to use arbitrage to access your equity for free, or even generate positive cash flow on it.
You know, a lot of homeowners that aren't investors, aren't listening to shows like this. They get a home equity line of credit as kind of a way to access their home piggy bank, and they buy a big screen TV or a boat or something, and they've got that loan built in, so to speak. And, you know, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But as an investor, we don't think the same way. And so I'm not saying you shouldn't have a home equity line of credit, but there's one other point that we ought to bring up, and you want to check this with your mortgage professional. But generally, a home equity line of credit, say it's $100,000, and you're not using it right now. When your lender looks to qualify you for a purchase for an investment property or for a commercial property, they're going to count that against you as though you had the entire line. And yet, as Russ says, very often those kinds of lenders can withdraw that HELOC credit anytime they want. So you can't rely on it. It might be okay to have it there if it doesn't affect your qualification on other properties very much. Let you sleep at night knowing you could grab some money. For me, I do like permanent financing and then keeping some cash. Not a lot of cash. Cash is trash, our friend Robert Kiyosaki says. And what he means by that is every minute that you're holding on to a dollar, it becomes worth less. Not worthless. It could one day, but it becomes worth less. And so you don't want to stack up a big pile of dollars, but you need to have some cash on hand for when there is opportunity. It's a great question. Thanks for that question, Daniel. The next question is from Omar in Chandler, Arizona. I want to know if all the events on your website, such as the Create Your Future Goals Retreat and Freedom Fest, require an experienced individual. Can it be open to a young person who's new and highly interested in learning and taking action in the real estate/investment world? By the way, I appreciate you guys, and I think it's the best investment in learning from you guys each morning. All right, Omar, well, thanks for those kind words. And, there are some events that we speak at and promote and produce that are definitely aimed at seasoned real estate investors, but for the most part, absolutely not. Everyone's welcome. Get immersed in the environment, get in over your head, or as we like to say, bite off more than you can chew and chew. So Create Your Future specifically is our goals retreat. You don't need any experience in real estate, as that event doesn't have much to do with real estate. But once you get solid on who you are and what you're after, what you're trying to accomplish in the world, you'll make a much better real estate investor. But there is no experience limit and even not much of an age limit. We find that most folks who attend Create Your Future and get something out of it are teenagers or older. So my teenagers have attended it for the last several years. In fact, this year, my 16-year-old brought his best friend, and now they're bringing people next year. So it's an event for anybody. As far as Freedom Fest, well, that's an event put on by our friend Mark Skousen, and Mark's done a good job over the years of bringing in young people specifically so that they can get exposed to some of the ideas there.
Yeah, I think with Freedom Fest, you just have to understand what you're getting into. Create Your Future is about you and your future and your goals, all those things. And you have to have that because it helps you identify out of all the things you could do in life, what to put in, what to leave out, what makes sense for you and all that. It helps you define your North Star, if you will. Freedom Fest is not really a real estate event either. What it does is it helps you understand a bigger picture in terms of economics, for sure, but also politics and the policies that affect entrepreneurs and investors. Now, it's right-leaning, we'll tell you that, and it's really more libertarian, so I don't really believe in right and left. I believe in big and small, right? There are people who believe in big government, big corporations, big everything. And then there's people that believe in individual liberty, personal freedom. Freedom Fest is more along those lines, but they do a deep dive into many of the controversial topics of the day and how that affects people's pocketbooks and their personal freedom. And if that's of interest to you, it can be great. One of the main reasons to go to an event like that, as opposed to an event like Create Your Future is very introspective. You spend a lot of time with yourself, getting to know you. Freedom Fest is a lot of networking. There's going to be breakout groups where you can find things that are targeting a demographic you may fit in, or a subject that you're interested in, or a particular speaker that you may have heard that you'd be interested in following up. And the more you get out there, to Robert's point, and meet people and interact and get into eye-opening and mind-blowing conversations and presentations. I give you an example. At Freedom Fest is when we first heard about Bitcoin. At the very, very, very beginning, when Bitcoin was less than a penny. And had we been a little bit more open-minded and a little bit more interested in taking a flyer on something we completely didn't understand but was extremely interesting, we'd probably have $1 billion today, because even $1,000 invested back then would be worth just a gigantic fortune. But that's the kind of thing you get exposed to when you go to places like that. Now, what you do with what you learn, that's up to you. We blew it in that regard, but we've also had some good success with things that we've learned. So we encourage anybody, young, old, or in between, to get out in the real world now that we can and interact with as many people and great ideas as you can. It only takes one good relationship, one great opportunity, or one great idea to more than make it worth it.
Freedom Fest takes place July 21st to the 24th this year. Create Your Future is in January of 2022, January 7th through 9th. You can find out about those events and all the other events that we participate in by going to the website at realestateguysradio.com under events. It's Ask the Guys, your questions, our answers. When we come back, it'll be time to ask you a question as we play real estate trivia next. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
Hey, ever wished you could go back in time and do some tax planning? Now you can, just like Marty McFly. Lucky for you, a brand new federal law just made this possible with an EQRP to get tax deductions and reduce your taxable income from last year, so you can use that tax savings to invest in real estate, Bitcoin, gold, even your own business. Whether you're a full-time investor, doctor, government employee, even if you have 5 or 50 employees, the EQRP works and is your secret weapon, and now it's retroactive. Hey, I'm Damian Lupo, and we have your solution. By the way, if you got bad advice and used an IRA for an apartment syndication, you are sitting on a U-bit time bomb. But don't worry, there's a solution, the EQRP. EQRP company is ready to help you get control of your money, kill UBIT, and help you pay way less taxes. Want to learn more about this strategy? Send an email to eqrp@realestateguysradio.com for my special EQRP report. Paying tax or letting Wall Street suck you dry is dumb. Your first step is freeing your retirement money by sending an email to eqrp@realestateguysradio.com today.
There she blows. Just a few spots remain for the Real Estate Guys 19th Annual Investor Summit. Imagine spending an entire week with like-minded investors, world-class educators, and real-world professionals. Returning this year is the editor of the Gold Newsletter, Brian London, international real estate developer Beth Clifford, Jim Rohn's 18-year business partner Kyle Wilson, and the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. Plus, coming back for his 9th Investor Summit, best-selling author and the Rich Dad advisor for real estate, Ken McElroy. And joining us live in person once again, Robert Kiyosaki. Plus lots more. It all begins June 11th in beautiful Belize. Visit realestateguysradio.com and click the tab that says Summit to reserve your spot while there's still one left. This transformational week is like no conference you've ever attended. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click Investor Summit and make plans to spend a week with the Real Estate Guys, Ken McElroy, Robert Kiyosaki, and an all-star faculty on the 19th Annual Investor Summit.
Hi, this is Steve Forbes. You're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Have fun. You'll learn something.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show today. You can still join us for the 19th Annual Investor Summit on Sand. It's going to be extraordinary. Just a few spots remain. But if you want to hang out with a couple hundred amazing real estate investors, plus Ken McElroy, Robert Kiyosaki, and the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, get to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click the button that says Summit. We love it when you ask us questions, and today it's an Ask the Guys program. Before we let you ask another question, we're going to ask you one for this week's edition of Real Estate Guys Trivia, where we ask you a trivia question that has something to do with real estate. And if you're the first to get it right, you're going to get a cool prize. This week it's an awesome book called Life-Defining Moments from Bold Thought Leaders. That can be yours if you know today's real estate trivia question. As soon as you hear the question and think you know the answer, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Send us your name, the answer to the question, and your mailing address. Last week on the show, we talked about going global in a post-pandemic world, and we asked this: name the only country in South America to have coastlines on the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Well, that's just geography, and lots of folks knew it's the country of Colombia. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Where in the United States would you find a town called Miracle Whip? Yeah, Miracle Whip. Where in the country is that? If you think you know, just want to guess, or I don't know, maybe you live there, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address, so that if you're the first to get it right, you'll get life-defining moments from bold thought leaders. That's today's real estate trivia question. We are taking your questions, your cards, your letters, your emails today for Ask the Guys. A lot of great questions. If you've got a question for the guys, just go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click Ask the Guys. We try to answer as many as we can this way. This question comes from Dina in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Hey guys, what is your opinion on buying land as an investment? I live in the forever sprawling suburbs of New Jersey, and I always see land for sale signs along the busy roads. What are your thoughts on buying land and holding it with the belief that one day a developer is going to come asking, who owns this land? All right, Dina, well, I tell you this. We talk about the 4 ways you make money in real estate, and those are cash flow from tenants, of course, or tenants don't have to be people, by the way. They could be windmills or cell towers, so tenants create cash flow. Also, appreciation. As a property is in demand and goes up in value, it's worth more. Then we have the tax benefits of owning real estate, like depreciation, where you get an offset or a phantom loss, if you will. And finally, there's amortization, which is the slow pay down of the loan. Follow me on this. If your tenant pays you every month and you use that money to pay the mortgage, part of that payment is paying off your balance. So that means more of the property is yours. Now, when it comes to land, 3 of those don't apply. There's no cash flow from land. It's just land. You don't get tax benefits. It's the one part that you don't get to depreciate. You depreciate the improvements, which can include utilities, curbs, gutters, the house, the buildings, but not the land. And then because it's virtually impossible to get a loan on land, there is no amortization. So the one way we make money on land is when it goes up in value. So for many, many years, land was my least favorite investment because of that. Today, land is one of my favorite investments on the planet because it is the planet. And the reason is land is versatile. Land maintains its value. Land is a real asset. Now, having said that, not all land is the same. For many, many years, if you wanted to buy cheap land, you could just go out to rural Arkansas and there's plenty of cheap land. 100 years ago, it was cheap. 20 years ago, it was cheap. Today, it's cheap. I'm going to guess 50 years from now, it's still going to be cheap. What you want, and you kind of hit on this talking about land in busy areas, is you want land in the path of progress.
Yeah, so I think the idea that an investment and a speculation are two different things. When you invest in something, you're buying something with the idea that it's going to produce income. And obviously, Robert just mentioned that doesn't do that. So just to kind of break down the words a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean that you're out of control. It's not pure speculation. If you buy a piece of property, you do have the ability to fix it up. You may not develop something on it, but you can take some steps to create more value. That's called land development. And now that becomes more of a job. So I look at land the way I look at gold. I don't look at either one as an investment. It's just an alternative place to park wealth. So if you don't need to spend your cash and you want to save it in land with the idea that somewhere down the road you can sell it to someone else for as much or more than you bought it for, and then that's a good thing to do, then that can be okay. To Robert's point, and what I mentioned is the idea that if you buy a piece of land that you have a plan to be able to improve, you might be able to control some of that and force some equity. So it's not really an investment, but it's a project that can be like an investment. But if you're going to use the strict definition of income, then it's not really an investment, or at least it's a long cycle from cash to asset to cash. But you ask a question, this idea that I'm going to buy it based on the belief one day a developer is going to come by asking, who owns this land? I'd ask myself the question, why doesn't somebody already own this land? Because if you see it and nobody's buying it, pretty much the people who are in the game, in the space, are looking at it every day too, and they're passing. Now, I'm not saying that you didn't find something that nobody else saw. Maybe you have an idea nobody else sees. I sat next to a woman on a cruise many years ago, asked her how she made her fortune because I asked her what she did. She goes, I cruise. I said, well, how do you manage to do that? She goes, well, I heard that they were going to move the Denver Broncos stadium, and I found out where they were going to move it to, and I went out and bought a bunch of the adjacent land, and now I run parking lots. And so she retired on that. So that was a land speculation based on a little bit of insider knowledge and common sense, and it turned into a cash flowing investment without a whole lot of improvement. So I'm not saying you don't have something like that, but start with trying to understand why people don't already own it, and that'll give you a little bit of an insight whether that particular parcel or area makes sense.
I had a friend who bought a 2-acre parcel of land, and for 10 years, he leased it to a Christmas tree farm, a Christmas tree operator during the holiday seasons, and the rest of the time it just sat there. And about 10, 11 years in, he sold it to a developer because by then everything had developed around it. So he did exactly what you said. He created a little bit of cash flow, probably enough to pay the property taxes, but he didn't have a loan. Now, the reason he bought it was because he knew the area well and he knew that one day someone will be interested in that. Now, contrast that to a 10-acre parcel that's about a mile from my house. And it's been for sale for 10 years. And everybody in our neighborhood has called the sign to inquire about it. And what we've all discovered is that the owner wants 5 times what it's worth. One day, the price will be right. As long as the owner doesn't raise their price and stay 5 times above the market, one day the market will catch up. But right now it hasn't. So there's a lot of land like that. When Russ and I had a chance to spend a 2-hour cab ride with George Ross, it was amazing, right? He's an incredible real estate attorney, and We still get to do a call with him once a month, which is awesome. He's in his 90s. He's done hundreds, more than hundreds, over 1,000 real estate deals in Manhattan. And there, boy, land is scarce. And it's not just land, it's land rights and water rights and the air rights above and all the convolutions. Across the way in New Jersey, there's a lot of beautiful land. And one day there may be demand for it. But again, that's more speculation. Now, land's good for other things, like growing crops. Agricultural land can be a great investment. Development land, there's a lot of builders who don't like to go through the whole entitlement and development process. They like to buy finished lots, meaning they're buying dirt, but it's already got curbs and it's got gutters and it's got the utilities are in and it's mapped, and they come in and they pay a premium for that. So that's another outcome for land. We actually thought about turning this discussion into an entire show, but we did a show on land a few years back. So if you dig through the archives, you'll find that. But that is our opinion on land as an investment. Thanks for your question, Dina. We have a related question from Matthew, who comes from Damascus, Maryland. Real estate guys, you are amazing. All capital letters, by the way, which is, a good way to start your Ask the Guys question if you'd like us to read it. I want to thank you for all the great content. I'm one of your newbie followers that found you in 2020, and I can't get enough. I'd like to get your thoughts on the push for green energy. Do you likely see any increased demand for land leases for solar and wind? Do you know how a newbie like me with no past experience with buying land, let alone leasing it to green energy companies, can get educated and connected with the right folks? Again, thanks so much for all you do. Well, Matthew, great question. And that brings up a whole nother use for land. So there is a big push for alternative energy. We're going to need more energy, not less. Our good friend Chris Martinson talks about that pretty much every time he's on our show. And this is definitely a use of land. And as far as finding and getting into that, it is definitely a specialty niche. In fact, I remember, Russ, you and I were at a conference and we ran into a couple of guys that were in the business of doing exactly this. They would lease big tracts of land, typically from ranchers and farmers and people that had land for generations in their family. And then they would create an opportunity for investment funds to come in and do both solar and wind.
Yeah, in this case, they didn't have to buy the land. They just leased it from someone else. And so it's like some people do with Airbnb. They'll lease a property and then turn around and Airbnb it and make money on the spread. So there's ways to be creative. But I think the bigger question here is someone with no experience. And I would say that I don't have a whole lot of skills in life, but I have a couple. And one of them is my ability to drop into an industry or an area where I know no one and I know nothing, and quickly figure out where the action is, who the players are, and where the best ideas come from. And the way I do that is I go to the places where those types of people congregate. So, for example, Robert mentioned that we met this particular guy at a conference. Well, there are conferences dedicated to green energy. There are panels and experts that are there debating and talking about current issues and the opportunities and the challenges. There are all kinds of vendors there who have figured out offerings and ideas, and there's lawyers and there's advocates and there's people who are in the political side of things, and there's people who are in the engineering side of things, and people who are active in the financing side of things. And so that's really the best place to start, because what you're going to do is you're going to tap into a big collection of people that can lead you through 2 or 3 degrees of separation, almost anybody you need to know and any answer you need to know. And what you'll do is you'll get a baseline understanding of what the industry is thinking, what they're talking about, what problems they're trying to solve, and where they see opportunities. And then you can take that and kind of align it with your own observations and common sense and say, okay, this is something I think would be interesting. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to explore. Because a lot of times in my past, I've decided that I had this brilliant idea that nobody'd ever thought of. And then I go to a conference and I find 5 vendors doing it and 4 guys talking about it. And all of a sudden I'm not as brilliant as I thought I was, but I'm affirmed, right? That I saw something. I just saw it a little late. Doesn't mean there's not room for me. It's always hard to be the pioneer, right? The pioneer are the people that got the arrows in the front and the back. The settlers come in after all that mess and they kind of settle. People establish an industry and then people kind of come in underneath them. So you don't have to be first. Sometimes sometimes being first is the bleeding edge, but you can be early and there's still plenty of wave to ride. So green energy is probably a wave that can be ridden, especially with this current administration and the direction of things in the world. It seems like a lot of money is going to get printed and pumped into these areas. It's considered to be a major job growth area. And you may just go into that and decide, hey, I don't want to be in that business, but now I can see where all the green money is going. And I'm just going to go buy bread and butter real estate in those markets. And I'll make my money from that money flow through green energy, through the local market, into the residential housing of the people who are working in those industries. And that's another way to play it.
Like any particular use of real estate, it does take a while to get your mind around. I think those are some great ideas. Russ is a master at working the trade show. Not only will he go to every booth and say, hey, tell me about what you do, but then he'll ask a really critical question. If I was brand new in green energy and I wanted to figure it out, I'd ask this: what's your biggest bottleneck? What's the biggest challenge you guys face? And if they're all saying, well, we just can't find enough land to put our you fill in the blank on, well, now, there's an opportunity. That might not be the problem. Problem might be something completely different. And it's a way that you can learn and also look for that opportunity. How can you fill in the gap? It's amazing how many times a gap exists in an industry and the people who spend every day in that industry cannot see it. Maybe that's what happens for you. Great question, Matthew. Hey, if you've got a question for the Real Estate Guys, just go to the website at realestateguysradio.com. Click the button that says Ask the Guys. We'll have more next. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
In uncertain times like this, it's great to know there are two things you can always count on: high demand for affordable single-family homes to live in, and Terry Kerr's amazing Memphis team at Mid-South Home Buyers to find, fix, and manage the next addition to your recession-resistant real estate portfolio. The Memphis market is a logistics and distribution dynamo with an economic engine that's essential to moving goods and critical supplies all over the United States. Quality rehab, proven profitable property management, affordable rents, and solid ROI make turnkey property investing through Terry's team a dream when it matters most. To learn more about Memphis and Mid-South Home Buyers, send an email to midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Doug Casey, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio show. We're so glad you've tuned into the program. Hey, if you ever wanted to be better at influence, persuasion, sales, come on out to How to Win Funds and Influence People, our 2-day workshop, which is incredible. And I can say that because Russ teaches the whole thing. It's coming right up, and you're not going to want to miss it since we only do it once a year. All the details on the website at realestateguysradio.com under events. It's Ask the Guys. Your questions, our answers. This question comes from Nick in Warsaw, Indiana. Hi guys, great show. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. My question is, what happens to mortgages here in the U.S. denominated in dollars if or when the Fed introduces a digitally backed dollar? Will mortgages be revalued or repaid in digital dollars like there is no difference from the traditional non-digital dollar the mortgage was written with? Thanks so much. Well, Nick, this is a really awesome question. We must start by saying we have no idea. I mean, whatever Fed token or digital currency there's going to be, and you can bet there's going to be one, is it going to be the dollar, and is it going to be valued as a dollar? But I think there's even a bigger tenet to the question here, and Russ can address both sides of this. But the first one is that, we said earlier, the dollar is worth less every single day. And that's not speculation. If you go back and you look at the value, the purchasing power of a US dollar since its inception in the early 1900s, it has gone one direction, and that is down. Down, 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 down. Only down. I mean, not just a straight linear down when you compare it to other currencies and other assets, but the trend is absolutely positively clear. So follow me on this. If you borrow $1 today and you pay it back in the future, the dollar you're paying back in the future is worth less. This is the brilliance of borrowing. It's why Robert Kiyosaki loves real estate. He doesn't really love apartments or commercial buildings. He loves debt. And so when you get into debt, your mortgage is typically written in US dollars. If there were ever to be a day where that currency was not to exist, well, that would be something.
Yeah, so I think that the fact that they call it a digital-backed dollar, how does a digital anything back anything, right? That doesn't make sense. There's no backing. There's nothing physical about a digital dollar.
Joel, Russ, it's just like the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and has no reserves.
Yeah.
They name it what. Think about this. What does the United States call the government entity that's in charge of everything outdoors? The Department of the Interior. The one word you can't use.
So the idea here is today's dollars are largely digital, right? When you deposit your money in the bank, they give you an electronic statement, maybe. They probably just give you an electronic computer screen that you look at on an app or on your computer, and it shows you what your balance is. And then when you spend it, it's largely a credit card, and then it gets transferred. It's all digital. So the idea of something being digital is not foreign to the world we live in. The concept of this new digitization, if you will, of currency is the blockchain, is making it more secure. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So the question is it going to be a dollar? Are they going to call it a dollar? Well, they already are. And will it be used or interchangeable with the physical dollars, which most of us don't really transact with much in the real world? So I'm going to guess the answer is yes. If for some reason we were to change our currency completely, go to a global currency or something like that, well, yes, then all of anything denominated in dollars would have to be revalued in the new currency. But I think that the plan would have to include making sure that everything is basically, from a ratio perspective, status quo, because it would be extremely disruptive. And maybe that's the game. I don't know. But I think that if you assume that the people in charge are wanting to make a smooth transition to whatever this new currency is going to be, they're not going to upset the status quo. We know mortgages are very, very important to the Federal Reserve and to the government. And the reason we know that is because the Federal Reserve prints billions of dollars every month and buys mortgage-backed securities. And the government creates all kinds of incentives and subsidized programs to finance housing, and they consider housing to be one of the most important components of the economy. There's many parts of the secondary market, the credit markets, the bond markets, that are all predicated on the collateral that is real estate and the mortgages which create the debt that they use. That's what a mortgage-backed security is. So I can't imagine a scenario where the people in charge who are interested in having a stable society and not disrupting everything would do anything at all to disrupt what matters most to us, which is the idea that we have the ability to earn a currency, to pay our debts, which are denominated in the currency, and the ratio between the debt and the value of the assets would be relatively stable. Of course, nobody knows what the future holds. I could be 100% wrong, but that's my take on it.
Great question. And all the questions today were awesome. Thank you so much. But not every question has been asked. If you have a question for the Real Estate Guys, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click the button that says Ask the Guys. While you're there, you might also want to click on the button that says Investor Summit. Our 19th annual Investor Summit on the Sand takes place in June, and it is nearly sold out. It's going to be absolutely incredible. We have an unbelievable faculty, people like Ken McElroy and Brian London from the New Orleans Investment Conference, and Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I don't even know if we've announced this, but the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, Ed Griffin, will be with us. And there's two awesome faculty members that are going to be a complete secret till you get there. but you're going to love it. You're going to hang out for 8 awesome days in a beautiful part of the world with incredible investors, 200 investors from around the world, around the U.S., around all kinds of real estate markets. I can't think of a better thing to do with 8 days.
Well, the thing about asking questions like Ask the Guys, people ask us questions because they know that we have a lot of experience, we study a lot, we're well connected to a lot of really smart people, we've collected a lot of good ideas and real world experience over the years. But we're just 2 guys. Now, you come to something like the summit and you start asking questions. You've got really high-level people, our mentors for sure, thought leaders, best-selling authors, we're talking 9-figure investors, people that are really, really substantial people, plus all of the fellow investors. And because you look at the barrier to entry, it's a big chunk of time and it's a big chunk of cash to get there. But if you want to be in a room where you're going to be able to ask great questions and get great answers from people qualified to have an opinion, to hear what smart people are asking of other smart people and how they're processing the answers that they're getting, and have enough time to do a deep dive on those conversations. We do a 1-hour radio show and answer questions. We give each question, and we probably take more of the time than we should on a typical question. We might give you 3 minutes. But imagine being able to gnaw on your most pressing question for a week and talk to 10 or 20 different people deeply about it and really refine your thinking. There's just no place else on earth you can go where you can get as much knowledge, build as many relationships with the right people, and get so far away from the daily grind that you really can focus your time and energy. And of course, you can't stay deep, intense focused for 8 days straight. You'd lose your mind. So what do? We sprinkle all kinds of epic fun, and we're going to be in one of the great resorts in the world, and we're going to be in a beautiful climate. We're going to be on the beach. We're going to be in the bars. We're going to be having a great time dining together, laughing, playing. If you've never been, you have no idea. We have tried for 19 years now to over-promote this thing. Not once have we ever had anybody go, "Oh, you guys overhyped that. This totally wasn't what you promised." Everybody says it's everything we say and more. And the fact is that the world continues to get crazier and crazier. And even though every year we say it's never been more important time, I believe it's true again this year. I think compared to all the rest of the years, there's never been a more important time. We're hearing talk of inflation, stagflation, things that we haven't seen in 40, 50 years. Many people are saying we are at the end of the useful life of the dollar and there's a great reset coming. That's not conspiracy theory. That isn't alt media. That's out there in the mainstream. There's some big, big, big changes coming. And it doesn't mean you're going to get wiped out, but the likelihood of you being able to be in a good position and make the right moves and really benefit is really going to depend on how well do you understand what's happening, how quickly do you see it, how well prepared are you to make the moves you're going to need to make, how well connected are you to people who are thinking on the fly. And all of that happens at these summits. I don't know what else to say about it except, I just think that if you're serious about your financial future and you can afford the time and the money, and again, it's an investment, it's not an expense, because it just takes one good idea, one great relationship, one opportunity to more than make it worth it. You're probably going to get a whole lot more than that in a week. Plus, it's a ton of fun. If you've been tired of being cooped up and it's time to take a vacation, we'll combine business with pleasure and come on the Investor Summit. You're going to love it.
It's nearly sold out, but we'll make space for you if you're quick. You'll find all the information on our website at realestateguysradio.com. Under the button says Summit. Until next week, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.